welcome in everybody to another episode of Cap and Trade. I am your host, TexansCap. You can follow me on X at TexansCap. Majority of my work is over on my Substack, capandtrade.football. You can subscribe. There's the link right there. It's a free subscription. We do offer paid subs, which makes this channel and everything else I produce just that much better. So appreciate everybody coming in. I just had a few things to talk about tonight. There's a lot of news going around the league between contract extensions and of course it's week 1 of the NFL with the regular season. So ton of things to get into, but I'm not going to dive into everything tonight. I just had a few things I wanted to talk about tonight. So really what I wanted to chat about was the Davis Mills extension. With my post today, my ex post today about I was shocked about it. Fire from the hip. What can I say? But I just had a couple of thoughts on that. And then Patrick Surtain signed a top of the market extension in Denver. Just wanted to kind of touch base on that. And just if we had time, any week 1 thoughts specific to the Texans and the Colts. But the Davis Mills extension, so broke really early. About 6:45 this morning. Diana Rossini, I think, was the first one on it, which is no surprise. And, you know, it just kind of shocked me. It did. You know, I really thought Mills would wait to get to the open market next year to kind of see what his value is going to look at. You know, he was scheduled to be a free agent before this extension. He was scheduled to be a free agent in 2025. It was going to be kind of a, the draft class is not, it's early. Things can change between now and the draft, as we know, and teams will fall in love with some quarterbacks. But, I don't know how good the draft class is for the quarterbacks. I know early sentiments are not that favorable. There's really, beyond Dak Prescott, there's really not any like top tier or big name quarterbacks that are going to hit free agency next year. So just kind of, you put all those things together and it just kind of surprised me. I'm not saying that Davis Mills would have been a sought after free agent for a starting quarterback role, but I think that he probably could have seen a decent market upwards of $7 or $8 million a year. Now he did sign for 1 year, reportedly $5 million per year. We don't know if that is the up to number. Maybe it's 4.5 plus some incentives. Who knows? We'll just wait. Probably won't get details on that until probably Friday or Monday next week. But, I really thought that he could kind of get into that 7 to 8 million APY area. So that was pretty much why I was kind of shocked at this point, right? I didn't know. I just didn't expect it. And it was an interesting play because, as we've seen, Nick Caserio and company has no problems doing, whether it's in-season extensions, early in free agency, summertime, training camp, all the way up to day before or the week of the regular season kicking off. And from Davis Mills' perspective, and Landry had a good, quick hit with Davis in the locker room today. So go to Landry's X profile. I think he's got the video there. And what it's pretty much what I would envision he would say. They looked at the market, like at least his agent. They kind of looked at the market and make a decision whether or not we're going to stay here or we're going to wait to see what our open market value is going to be. It kind of like the baseline, the baseline floor is you have Joe Flacco, who's 39 years old, $4.5 million per year. Andy Dalton, who's 36, $5 million a year. Drew Lock's 28, which I think Davis is 27 right now. He signed for $5 million a year. Jared Stidham, 27, $5 million a year. Marcus Mariota, 31, $6 million a year. Tyrod Taylor, 35 years old, $6 million a year. And then you get up into Jacoby Brissett at $8 million and Sam Darnold at 10. I think 5 is probably the floor. and that's where I have no problem with him doing the extension. Don't get me wrong. I just think it just is interesting. Why take it now versus potentially getting $7 or $8 million a year on a 2-year deal next year, whether it's with Houston. Maybe he goes out and sees the market. Maybe Houston creates an offer, go see the market, come back, let us know, or he signs elsewhere. Just as a hypothetical. But he's staying with $5 million here, and so not just that gives my curiosity of why. Why do that? And I'm sure he's got plenty of valid reasons, and I think there's plenty to it. I mean, I think there's going to be a decent size free agency class that are in that backup quarterback type role, fringe players that had high draft stock, things like that. The Zach Wilsons, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones are all scheduled to be free agents next year. And so that would kind of drum up some of that upper level backup quarterback money in that $7 or $8 million range. So maybe that kind of depresses Davis's value. It just kind of sees. There's going to be very limited starting options next year, or availability at starting quarterback roles. We don't know what's going to happen with the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers next year. Pittsburgh is in a mess right now, both having Justin Fields and Russell Wilson going to be free agents after this year. Las Vegas Raiders, they have Minshew there, but really don't know what their prospects are going to be next year. New York Giants, kind of a mess once they try to get out of the Daniel Jones situation. New Orleans Saints, they drafted Spencer Rattler, 5th rounder, but is Derek Carr going to be there next year? And Seattle Seahawks, is Geno Smith going to be there? And beyond that, there's really everything else is pretty well locked up. So, you kind of start looking at all those things as I'm just kind of looking at it from Davis' perspective now, right? Why re-sign with Houston? Well, these are why. The free agency, the available starting options are going to be pretty limited. There's a pretty sizable group of quarterbacks that were all drafted higher than Davis Mills, and unfortunately, draft stock plays a role in market value and free agency. It just is. It does. That's the way the world works in the NFL. But you start looking at all those things, and then maybe he likes it living in Houston, outside of football, away from everything else. Maybe he enjoys being here in Houston. It's a great town, a lot of cultural diversity here, fantastic food. Maybe he loves D'Amico Ryans. Maybe he loves the McNairs. Maybe he loves the way this organization is run, the culture behind this organization. And then at the end of the day, he probably identifies that Houston is on a hard run for the Super Bowl now and next year and the year after that, before some of the big contracts start coming in down the line. And so maybe Davis sees this and says, hey, I want to be a part of this. I want to help this team get to that championship level. And I'll do it whatever role that is, whether it's back up to C.J. Stroud, or if, God forbid, C.J. gets hurt, I got to step in and play. You put all those things together, then $5 million for 1-year extension. Maybe it just becomes like a perpetual kind of thing. We've seen that with Nick Caserio in the past. Sign a 1-year extension. We'll reevaluate, say, 12 months from now after training camp and into the preseason next year. Maybe they want to do another 1-year extension, and maybe he just can take another look at the market. Maybe he has more playing time this year. Maybe he doesn't play at all. Who knows? But if you look at it from that perspective, then it kind of makes sense for Davis to make that kind of move. So I see it from his perspective. I just was surprised at the number. Like I said, I sometimes I fire stuff off from the hip. I was kind of surprised at the number. The number makes sense on a lot of levels. I just thought there was a little bit of money left on the table, and that's just my perspective on things. It's not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not saying Davis made a bad decision. I think he made a a great decision for himself. I'm never going to accuse a player of turning down money or not getting what's theirs. We know NFL life is very, very short. And when you have the opportunity to get you your money, then you get it. Gosh darn it. So, but I also kind of want to look at it from the Texans' perspective and make sure if you got any questions, comments, throw them up on the board. I'll kind of answer what I can. If you got any, questions, throw them up there. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Helps me out. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter, capandtrade.football. But looking at it from the Texans' perspective, this is a great deal for Houston. They're going to look at it as a 2-year deal at $4.06 million APY. That's how the team's going to look at it. The $5 million, the 1 year $5 million is new money. So Davis is scheduled, I think, to earn like $3.116 million this year. He got a raise for the proven performance escalator that's part of rookie contracts in the last year. So add on the $5 million on top of the 3.1 that he's scheduled to earn this year, 8.1 divided by 2, 4.06. That's the paper value or effective value. There's a lot of different coin terms for it, but that's how the team's going to look at it. Is now we have an established quarterback who has plenty of starts, knows the system, stays healthy, right? I mean, he's been very healthy. I feel the team probably feels comfortable with Mills if he needs to take over the reins for short stints of time. Mills has been a consummate professional. Does his job, goes to work. It's a pretty quiet individual, it seems like, for the most part, from what I see from the outside looking in. But I think you just put all those things together. Knows the system, healthy, does his job. Very good, effective paper value of $4.06 million on APY on a 2-year deal. I think all those things together are that's great for Houston. And they would have no qualms about doing that again, I'm sure, come next year. Now, the team doesn't have to worry about looking in for another backup quarterback next year. They don't have to dig into the draft on day 2 to maybe, trying to draft another, quote unquote, Davis Mills, who was drafted in the 3rd round. They could, look on day 4 for an athletic project kind of guy, thing like that, something like that. So it kind of takes that off the table for them, takes them off the table of having to look into free agency next year. It just pushes everything back a year. And maybe, like I said, you can continue this little game of one year extensions as both parties meet and are happy with it. So we talked about it, just to kind of cap it up. We talked about it from the market perspective, where $5 million of new money. I think it probably could have gotten a little bit more than that on the open market next year. The open market, free agency open market's crazy. Anything can happen. It just takes one team, and then the numbers get a little crazy. So we talked about that. We talked about it from Davis Mills' perspective. Why do this? It's good money. Get it while you can. Probably loves the team, loves the organization, loves the McNairs, loves DeMeco Ryans, loves the quarterback room, loves the coaching staff with Bobby Slowick and Gerard Johnson. You probably loves it, might love living here in Houston. You just add all those things up. It makes sense from Davis Mills' perspective to sign this contract, to sign this extension. And then from the Texans' perspective, it's a good deal all around. We talked about it. It's a very good 2-year paper value, $4 million a year. Pushes that position of any type of need or a review back another year, and just maybe frees up another day 2 draft pick. So it makes sense on a lot of levels. I'm all for it. I'm happy for Davis Mills. Get your money, man, while you can. If you got any questions, comments, we'll get to what we can. Good evening, Larry. Good to see you. Man, don't. That's nothing to do with Coley. I get it. I mean, I get it because that it's the same. It's the same thing with Eric Murray, the Eric Murray situation. He's got that Bill O'Brien stench and things like that. But you know, don't worry about it. Davis Mills, he doesn't have the Coley and Lovey stench behind him. It's a Nick Caserio draft pick, and that's Nick Caserio's draft pick. So that's pretty much all I had to cover on Davis Mills. It wasn't any earth-shattering, I'm shocked and crazy and demand to know why. No. I just, I was just shocked. I was surprised. What can I say? I'm a shocked kind of guy. So, today also, Patrick Surtain, cornerback for the Denver Broncos, signed a 4-year, $96 million extension today, or agreed to terms. He probably won't sign it for another day or two. Denver's pretty tied up against the cap, and Surtain's extension is going to, which we already have the details up on overthecap.com. His cap number is going to go up quite a bit. So they need to go in and probably restructure another player or make another contract adjustment elsewhere to have all the numbers flip in, because tonight at midnight, the top 51 accounting changes are no longer in effect, and top 53 and all players will now count towards the salary cap. That switch flips tonight at midnight, or 11 p.m. our time, midnight Eastern. So that's why I think Surtain probably won't put. Well, I say that I think he did put pen to paper today. So maybe Denver already submitted a contract adjustment at the same time. So, but I wanted to talk about it just because he had 2 years left on his deal. I think it's $54 million in new guaranteed money. It's good, strong cash flows. I think Marlon Humphrey's deal has a little better cash flow in year 0, year 1, but that's just Baltimore. They're heavy cash spenders on their contracts on the front years, and they do that. And if you listen to me, I've said it before, Baltimore does it very well with their contracts. They offer a lot of cash up front in exchange for a pretty favorable APY. So, but once you get into year 2, year 3, and obviously year 4, Surtain is top of the market on all those. It's a double bonus option, which we're starting to see more and more across the league. George Patton he used those when he was assistant GM in Minnesota, so no problem with the structure. I think that's just something commonplace we're going to start to see more and more across the league. But I kind of wanted how it ties into Derek Stingley. Derek Stingley becomes contract extension eligible after this season, come next March 13th, whenever the new league year starts. Him and obviously Sauce Gardner will be both extension eligible. Will Houston attempt to do an extension with Stingley? And if so, what will the price be? Is probably the questions I'm going to be getting if I haven't already got them. So I think it's going to be tough. It really is. I think Surtain's at $24 million a year. That's a big market adjustment. Finally, that position really needed some big adjustment to it. They really needed to have a player push that market upwards, and that's what Surtain did. Now, the cap obviously is going to rise again next year and subsequent years, and so I think when you look at it from a percentage of the cap, Surtain is down, I think, like 7th or 8th on the list when I looked at it earlier today. But I think Stingley's going to need, in the eyes of Houston, if he wants to get to that top market like that, I think he's going to need to put together 2 years, 2 full seasons of being healthy and putting what we've all seen him being capable of doing. But I think being available and being on the field is going to be a big part of it. So let's just say he plays 15 games this year, second team All Pro, or he gets a Pro Bowl nod, things like that. Maybe he's not one of the 2 best cornerbacks in the league, but he's a top 6 guy in whatever performance metrics we want to look at. Would the Texans want to approach that $24, $25 million a year next year? I'm not entirely sure they would be on board with that. Now, it does getting him done 2 years early, because they'll have to make that 5th-year option decision by the Monday after the draft next year. But I think he just needs to put together a little bit bigger a body of work to justify going to that number. Now, the team probably is going to be all on board trying to sign him next offseason. I'm just not entirely sure to be at that top market number. And that goes back to what I was talking about with Davis Mills with the 2-year paper APY and how teams view these things. Like Surtain, it's a 4-year, $96 million extension on new money, but paper, it's a 6-year, what was it, 96, and he had 19.8 plus like 3 something divided by 6. Yeah, so paper value on Surtain is down around 19.8, 20 million. So that's how the team's going to look at it, is 6-year deal, $20 million a year. That's how Houston's going to want to look at this as well. So they would be encouraged to sign Stingley next offseason. So under the assumption that Stingley plays well this year, remains healthy, gets at least 15 games on the field, excluding playoffs and all that. But if he is healthy and he plays the way that this staff expects him to play, and the way that we've already seen him play in training camp and in preseason, I think they would be getting very close to the number. I'm just not entirely sure that they'll reach that number. And Nick's always kind of a wild card with this kind of stuff. I think he's very much a let's get a deal done that meets both sides of the table. I'm not going to go way over the top, but I'm also not going to lowball the crap out of you. Now, it may start there as a lowball, whereas David Moe, Athletes First, who's going to be on Stingley's side of the table, is going to start really high, just normal negotiation. You meet in the middle. But I think it would behoove the team and Stingley to wait probably one more year, because I don't know that the market is going to rise too dramatic. I think this Surtain 14% adjustment, I think, is what it was. Maybe Sauce Gardner comes in at 25 and a half, but really, is it going to push beyond that to get to where it's some crazy number? I don't envision that today. So, maybe Houston's ready to go pull the trigger next year, but it may not be. It may only be at $23 or $24 million a year, maybe 25 at most. But you wait another year, I really don't know that the market's going to slide that much further up the APY number, up the chart. So to me, that's I think this is. I'm always been a big proponent of signing players early. I just kind of think we would need to see a little bit more of a body of work from Stingley. Yeah, and this is what Arthur says. If Sting plays well, do you think he gets a penny more than Surtain or Sauce, or do you think those guys separate themselves? Yeah, I mean, I think Surtain's number is pretty strong for the adjustment that we saw in the market. And cornerback APY, cornerback contracts have been kind of slow paced the last couple of years. And I think this was the first move, and I don't know if teams are going to allow another big 15% adjustment this time next year with Sauce Gardner. So that's why I think you could probably get Stingley at around the same number as Surtain, 24 million a year, 24 million a year. I don't foresee Stingley being able to just blow past that. And I don't know that Sauce Gardner will just blow past that. TJ says Sting will break 25 million mark. Very well could. But yeah, definitely has got to stay healthy. It's just going to have to wait and see, but definitely would like to see a full season of healthy Stingley, a full season of big time playmaking Derek Stingley like we're used to seeing. If Kamari Lassiter can stay healthy and play the way that we've seen him play, that'll allow Stingley to stay on his side of the field more often. We saw last year towards the back half of the season where they had Stingley following the number one across the field, in which he's more capable of doing. But I think if you can, kind of like what New York Jets do with DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, where they just stay on their side of the field, I think that'll really benefit Stingley as well. But I think you just all those factors together. I think that's why, yes, the team probably would like to sign him next year, get that 6-year. I don't know that Caserio would do a 4-year extension, maybe does a 3-year extension, but you get that paper value down to a little more acceptable number, and then just let the new money media numbers come out as they need. So, but I think you can make an argument for both sides, whether it's signing Stingley early next offseason at close to a market rate deal, or you wait a year, or do it mid-season. Maybe he's just having a fantastic year and you're able to come to an agreement mid-season. But I feel like the Stingley is one that's probably going to happen in 2026 if I had to guess, which means it'll probably happen next offseason because Nick just does things like that to me. He's just not very nice. Yeah, so that's kind of my read on that situation. I'm happy to see the market get adjusted up a little bit for Surtain and the extension. I think that's a good move for the position group. Is very much needed. We saw, like we've been saying all offseason, the two positions that we're going to need to have some market movement was going to be center and cornerback. And we knew Creed Humphrey was going to be the man to do that, and he did it. And Patrick Surtain was going to be the person to do that, and he did it at 14% increase. So good on them. I'm excited to see what Stingley does this year, and then how does that translate into his market value the following season. So last thing I want to talk about tonight is going to be a little bit shorter show. I see we got some Q&A coming in, so we'll get to those in a few minutes. So I will go back. I saw Arthur had a question, Louis had a question. So if you got any questions, Arthur, and we did answer Arthur's other question, but Arthur's got one about Christian Harris. We'll talk about that. Stress is in here. What's up, Stress? Any predictions for the Cap game tomorrow? So for the game tomorrow, man, I got to talk about other teams. Well, week 1 thoughts. So I think the Indianapolis game is going to be stressful. It's a heck of an opening game. I think the Colts have been a little bit underrated this offseason. Their secondary is going to be their weak point. Their front 7 is fantastic. Between Buckner, Grover Stewart, Leitao, and Zaire Alexander, and A.J. Speed, Kwity Paye is a very good defensive end. So that front 7 is going to be very, very good. Kenny Moore is a very good slot cornerback. But the safeties beyond Julian Blackman's not bad, but the secondary has shown to be kind of their weak point. Houston put up a lot of passing numbers against this defense last year, and I expect them to probably do the same thing this year. Hopefully, the running game has a little more firepower with Joe Mixon, but I feel like this is going to be a pretty high-scoring game if I had to guess. from the other side, we saw what Anthony Richardson did to the defense last year in a short time span. He's an electric player. Can definitely move the ball between him and Jonathan Taylor. Good wide receiver core. It sounds like Josh Downs is probably not going to be able to play, but Mitchell and Pittman and Pierce is a quality group. So I'm not too terribly worried about the passing game that Indianapolis is going to bring, but Steichen's just such a very, very good play designer. He shifts pockets around, puts a lot of motion and a lot of eye candy on things to really confuse the defense. And if Richardson can kind of keep his footwork clean, find himself some clean pockets, he very well could have a big day against Houston. I think the running game is going to be the big part, and I wrote that with Azeez Al-Shaair this year being one of my most impactful players that Houston brought in, and it's specific to the run defense. The team is really going to need him to step up. Daniel Hunter and Will Anderson, I'm excited to see what they can do from a pass rush perspective, and I'm not too terribly worried about their run defense on the edge, but I am a little concerned about the interior with Fatukasi and Mario Edwards and in regards to the run defense and how that translates back to not having Christian Harris back there. So I'm curious to see who's going to come off the field, if Toa is going to come off the field in sub packages, leaving Hansen and Al-Shaair on the field, or if Toa is going to stay on the field. I have a feeling Hansen's probably going to stay on, but we'll kind of just have to wait and see how that plays out. But I think just the imagination that Steichen brings to the table from an offensive scheme perspective is just going to be really fun to watch. It's going to be a chess match between him and D'Amico Ryans. If Jimmy Ward is ready to go, like we've seen him do all training camp, he can stay healthy, we'll be able to see that interchangeable safety roles that we're seeing versus a single high look that we saw a lot during preseason with the vanilla packages with Kalen Bullock playing out in center field. So hopefully we see a lot of the interchangeable safety work. Jalen Petrie will slide down to nickel in the sub packages, and probably Eric Murray come on as the additional safety whenever they run those packages. Miles Bryant will be the backup nickel. And so I think the secondary matches up well with this Indianapolis wide receiver core. Pittman's a big dude, very consistent. Mitchell's just going to be kind of their electric horizontal player that's going to put a lot of pressure on Azeez and Hansen and Toa there in the linebacker group. Petrie's going to have a handful trying to cover him, but he's going to do a lot of horizontal work. So, and Steichen really moves the pocket around. He's very good at that. He's very good at creating good throwing lanes for his quarterback. So beyond just Jonathan Taylor's show that we know we're going to see, I'm excited to see how this defense matches up. And this game can go anyway. I'm not going to do any score predictions or anything like that, but my confidence is high. I think the line is 2.5 in favor of Houston, which going to Indianapolis is good because you always kind of have that, 1.5, 2-point bump for playing at home. So, but from what I've read, it sounds like 91% of books, or at least at one casino, 91% of the money was on Houston. Both on, it was like, that was the money line. I think the cash line, and then on the over-under side was like 86% on them. So, I mean, the bettors out there really, really favoring Houston on this. And we saw there's a lot of excitement for this team, just not locally, but across the league. I mean, we saw on NFL Daily, Greg Rosenthal's new show, Jordan Rodriguez was on there, and she was in town just not too long ago watching practice when the Rams were in town, and she stood on the little table and predicted that Houston was going to make a run to the Super Bowl. And there's a lot of people that have that sentiment, a lot of smart people that have that sentiment. So it's going to be definitely need to go week by week. This is going to be a hair pulling out kind of season, even if you don't have hair like me. And I hope the team comes away with the win. I mean, I have pretty good confidence as that's going to happen, but Steichen is not going to make it easy. He is not going to make it easy. And I think so. Gus Bradley, I think's the DC in Indianapolis now, so which he runs a lot of cover 3 type systems. So hopefully we see a lot of corner routes and double post work. Really put some pressure on that cover 3 safety look. So I'm excited to see what Bobby Sloak brings. I think there's going to bring a lot of firepower. I think it's going to be hot and heavy early. I know he'll want to establish that run game, but I have a feeling it's going to be a pass to establish the run game scenario and not a establish the run to pass the ball kind of game. I think you might see a lot of attempts out of CJ Stroud early in this game, a lot of 3-step quick looks, start to get those linebackers to move out of the box a little bit, to back off, work off in coverage, and then start working in Joe Mixon in the running game, later in the first quarter into the second quarter, and then try to really start to control the game there. And then you kind of play that chess match between the DC and the OC going forward after that. So that's just kind of some of my overall thoughts on that. So we'll kind of go back through if there's any questions. So let's see here. Stress asks any predictions for the game tomorrow. I don't know. It's tough to. Just don't dive in hard on other teams and what they can do or not do. So what? So it's the Brazil game, right? It's Packers and Eagles. I think Jordan Love is going to continue his superior run that we saw last year. I think that's going to continue, and I think it's going to put. I'm curious to see Kellen Moore with Philly with his offensive play calling. Philadelphia, they had a lot of trouble with their coordinators last year, so I'm kind of curious to see how that translates over. I mean, and then how it works without Jason Kelsey anchoring that line. So, I don't know. We'll see. I think Green Bay will come out with that one. Oh, you were asking about for tomorrow. Yeah, no, it's all good, man. We talked about Sunday. TJ says, wouldn't Will Anderson Jr. be eligible for extension in 26 if they wait on Sting? Yeah, because he was, drafted 23, so 24, 25. 23, 24, 25. Yeah, I mean, it's, Stingley and Kenyon Green are going to be eligible next year. Will Anderson Jr., CJ Stroud, Tank Dell are all going to be eligible in 26. So a lot of big money contracts coming down the pipeline in the next 2 years. It's going to be a lot of fun. Petrie is my X factor helping to run games for RPOs. Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a lot of discipline. It's going to take a lot of discipline from him at the line, especially when he's down at the nickel kind of star role, third linebacker role. I was listening to Seth Payne, and he was saying that Petrie's tackling efforts, not just his ability to tackle, but as his actual technique, seems to have proved based on what we've seen in training camp and preseason. He's getting the arms out. He's wrapping up. He's not leaning. Hopefully we don't see him go back into leaning into that shoulder tackle nonsense that he was doing a lot last year. So just, basic tackle 101. So, but I think I'm with you because with Harris being out, you're going to need that speed in that group there. One good hit and Hitchison will be out of the game. Yeah, I mean that's the problem there. I mean he's started. I saw a stat today that he started 17 games between high school and heading into this year, and that's it. Um, that's a pretty wild number, and he didn't even finish some of those 17 games. So yeah, I mean his health has always been a concern, and will he maintain that for the season? It's a coin toss at this point. I could see us running some big dime too with 5 safeties on the field. They did that last year, but I thought that was more out of necessity when they were shorthanded in the safety group. Not. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But I think though, as long as Ward is healthy and playing, I think we'll see that more interchangeable look. Are we going to run more zone versus man versus Richard? Well, I guess it kind of depends on Lassiter and what the team feels they can do with him. Stingley is fantastic in man coverage. I would prefer to have more man coverage. I think running with Pierce and Pittman's not too big of an issue. I think the biggest issue is going to be the horizontal routes with Mitchell across the middle of the field and trying to find a linebacker or Petrie or somebody trying to cover him coming across the field. So probably a little more zone than man, but probably more man than you would think. This is trash, bro. That's not nice, TT. That's not nice. Yeah, he's a little more aged. He was a very good defensive coordinator in Seattle years ago before going down to Jacksonville, and he's a veteran defensive coordinator, so we'll kind of see. But like I said, the secondary is probably their weak link, so they're going to have to really depend on their pass rush and what that front seven can do. This is going to be a huge test for Kenyon Green and Shaq Mason and Juice Scruggs going against Buckner and Grover Stewart in there. And I think that's going to be a big key component to how this passing game for Houston will go down. If, with this, finally get to see this offensive line work together for the 5 guys that we've been wanting to see for 12 months. So I want to see Mixon make a house call. Yeah, man. Like Nico made a house call last year in the first play. I would love to see Mixon break one open. Can you walk through min and max practice squad contracts on one of your future shows? Yeah, why don't we do it real quick right now? So there's 2 different types of practice squad settings. So there's non-veteran contract and veteran contract. Non-veteran, it's locked in the rate, $225,000 a year. The veteran side, I think it's based on the Pete Rozelle system, so 2 years, I think, something like that. It's anywhere from $303,400 to $383,400 is the pay range for the veteran practice squad contract. So they can sign anywhere in that range. Houston always to the max every time. Nick Scaria has always done that. Will continue to do that, and he's doing it again this year. Colts is one team that kind of goes back and forth. They actually have one veteran practice squad that I think it was Chris Lamons is like at 321 or something like that when I was updating his contract details the other day. He's right in the middle, so they can go. It's an unnegotiable number going into that range. But gone are the days of being able to pay a practice squad player any number you want. You cannot, like we used to see, teams would stash a player on the practice squad and pay them the same money that they would make if they were on the active roster. So that is gone. Tomorrow's Reese chat. See, there you go. So I haven't even really looked hard at the schedule. So Ravens and Chiefs, yeah. Ravens. We'll see how the defense works for the Ravens. If you could take one player from the Colts, who would it be? Oh, Buckner. With the current roster with Houston, give me Grover or Buckner on the interior defensive line. That's an easy one. Easy. Do you foresee us being able to re-sign Stingley, CJ? Yeah, I can foresee that. I think if the team is able to if Nick's going to have to go beyond the he's going to have to really push for some longer year contracts, or he's going to, because I really don't want to get into the void money game yet, but he can. 3-year extension with 2 void years, so you can press out some of that money in the future. But I really would like to see Houston get back into the option bonus game, or build their model around some restructures, knowing that you're going to restructure player in year 2 or year 3 of their contract. Option bonus is you can almost count option bonus as a scheduled restructure almost, right? Option bonus will add another year to the contract. You can't just have an option bonus in there. It's usually you're opting in to another year of the contract or another 2 years of the contract. That's how an option bonus is. But I think if they really, really lean heavy on a rising cap and do what like San Francisco and Cleveland is doing with their contracts and what Philadelphia does, push as much money forward as you can as part of that structure. Use the first 2-3 years to have a relatively low cap charge. Push as much money as you can forward, and then you start to pick and choose which of those players you're going to extend and which of those players you move on after their second contract. So I don't see any problem with being able to sign those 4 players. It's just you're just gonna have to be aggressive with your contract structure and push money out to the future. We would take, yeah. Mitch is from around here, but I like our wide receiver core. Just do. So that was about it for tonight. I appreciate all the questions. So we did talk about Davis Mills and the extension. I know a lot of people were surprised, weren't too fond of my shocked post on X this morning, but hey, what can you do? Can't make anybody happy. Can't make everybody happy. But we did talk about Davis Mills. We talked about Pat Surtain and that extension and how that kind of folds over into Derek Stingley and what his potential market value will be next year. And then we just kind of went through some week 1 thoughts from Indianapolis and Colts. So make sure if you came in late, that's the things we talked about. More than welcome to hit the rewind and go back. But, just kind of wanted to talk about Davis Mills. And that's, maybe a kind of a not as interesting topic as some people, interesting to me, obviously. But, we'll be curious to see if we see any more contract extensions. Nick is sneaky like that. He just will drop those in and get them done. So I hope everybody has a good week. Make sure subscribe to the newsletter, capandtrade.football. It's free. Newsletters come out at least probably once a week. Now that we're in regular season mode, I'm going to be Texans heavy on the newsletter. I do cover league wide on it, but be a lot of Texans. I do have a chat over there as well that's free to access, and that's probably where I'm going to put all my film work this year. I've just been having constant problems with uploading film to X. It seems like after like 2 posts, then I start getting errors, and I don't know. And there's a couple other people that run into the same issue. So a lot of people post film on X, fantastic, but I'm just going to have all mine at the Substack chat, just one giant thread, and that way I can kind of do it as the day goes on, because I do have a regular job. Can't just play and watching all 22 all day long. I did post on X today. Fantasy Points has some new data metrics. So they came out with average separation score. I'll let you figure out the acronym on that. And, I pulled the numbers for 2023 for the Houston receivers, and I added Diggs in there from his Buffalo numbers. But Tank Dell and Nico Collins, man, were just huge average separation score numbers, both against zone and man coverage. So just really excited to see that carry over into 2024. So go back, check out that post on X. Like I said, we talked about subscribing there. It's free. We do offer paid subscriptions to Cap and Trade. I don't do this to make money. Any money that comes from subs go right back into the channel, right back into the production, right back into all of my data sourcing. So any subs that y'all do there that are paid help me make better content for you. So appreciate everybody coming in. Stress, good to see you. I hope you enjoy the game this week. Doc, good to see you as always. I appreciate it, man. With that, we will call it a night. Everybody have a good evening. Peace.